Bottom of the hour, Fox News alert for you. We are still waiting right now for the names of the 14 victims to be released sometime soon, as investigators comb through at least 3 crime scenes following yesterday's mass shooting. The number of injured jumping today to 21 after the officer involved in the shootings where the suspects were killed. Somehow we got more victims here. Trace Gallagher, live for us at the scene in California. Trace, what else have you found out?
The crazy thing about this, Gretchen, is the authorities aren't even sure when you listen to the news conference that, in fact, the Christmas party was the intended target. If you look down the list of ammunition and explosives they had, the authorities believe there might have been a bigger target that they were actually looking for. That's clearly not been determined or confirmed yet, but if you look at this list, I mean, they had thousands of rounds. We're talking about 2,000 rounds of 9mm, 2,500 rounds of .223, and the pipe bombs, at least a dozen, a slew of pipe bombs, at least a dozen, and the material and the ability that they could just make more and more of these pipe bombs because they had the tools in the garage. Remember, we told you about the witness, the neighbor who said they were up late at night, spending time in the garage. They got boxes delivered all the time, and she found that very suspicious. Well, now police believe, in fact, what they were doing was they were building these pipe bombs in the garage. Now, the reason the police are so intent on this house that the killers were living in is because they could actually go back and trace those explosives and possibly find out an origin. That's every bit as important as when they go in and they pull out things like the cell phones and the computers, because they can use those to kind of figure out who they've been in contact with in the weeks and the months that led up to this attack. That would give them a better idea if, in fact, they were in contact with an outside force. Did they get help? Were they getting equipment from somebody else? Did they get training? These are all things that are now working into the investigation. The FBI says this was clearly very well planned, and they want to know exactly who helped them plan it, if anybody. We are also just getting more information, Gretchen. We've gotten some court records that says that Saeed Farouk, who of course is one of the killers, has been determined that he was in an abusive household. We don't know what that means, but it's just one of the facts of the case that investigators are looking at. Had an alcoholic father who apparently beat his mother. It's just one more aspect of the investigation of how this guy went from being an American to suddenly, you know, branching out into something that clearly, you know, does not confine with the terms of reason that we think, Gretchen.
Certainly doesn't mean being an American. Trace, thank you so much. President Obama assuring concerned Americans that investigators will get to the bottom of the deadly shooting in California. Meantime, White House also making a case for stricter gun laws to help prevent attacks like this from happening in the future. Peter Doocy, live from the White House today. So, Peter, what's the president saying about these attacks?
Gretchen, the president says that even though right now he thinks it's too soon to tell if this attack was carried out by disgruntled employees or terrorists, he does think the best way to stop a San Bernardino-style shooting from happening in the future is with new gun laws.
We're going to have to, I think, search ourselves as a society to make sure that we can take basic steps that would make it harder, not impossible, but harder for individuals to get access to weapons.
It's also notable that the day of the Friday the 13th attacks in Paris, President Obama gave a statement where he said that we stand with the French as they fight extremism. But today, no mention, at least not yet, of a fight against extremism here.
Okay,
Gretchen.
so has the White House outlined any other steps to prevent attacks like the one that we saw yesterday?
The theme that we keep hearing, we just heard it at the briefing, is that they think the best way to stop something like San Bernardino from happening again is what they call common sense gun laws. But so the question becomes, do they really think common sense gun laws are going to deter terrorists in the future? Now that President Obama has admitted these attackers may have in fact been terrorists. And the answer is yes, they do. But so the president thinks that when there are potentially 2 terrorists sitting around planning a mass murder, they may call it off because President Obama has put in place common sense gun laws.
Well, Peter, we're still learning of the precise motives of the individuals who carried out this heinous act of violence yesterday. One thing we do know is that the 4 firearms they were wielding were legally purchased under the laws that are in place now.
So officials here are frustrated that there hasn't been a change in gun laws in the time that President Obama has been in office, and they are placing the blame entirely for that on lawmakers up the street. Gretchen.
Not to mention the fact that they had an entire bomb factory there, but we'll get to that in just a minute. Peter, thank you. Mass shooting in Southern California, top issue now on the campaign trail as well. GOP candidates are in Washington today. This is, of course, Governor Mike Huckabee for the Republican Jewish Coalition Forum. And earlier in the Oval Office, President Obama also addressing the attack.
Yesterday, a tragedy occurred in San Bernardino, and as I said in the immediate aftermath, our first order of business is to send our thoughts and prayers to the families of those who've been killed. We are going to be vigilant, as we always are, in getting the facts before we issue any decisive judgments in terms of how this occurred.
Guy Benson is a Fox News contributor and the political editor of townhall.com. Attorney Jessica Ehrlich is a former Democratic congressional candidate. Jessica, we've heard from the president. They're really still trying to press this whole, statement that it's all about gun control. The problem with that statement today, one of many, is that they had an entire bomb-making factory going on here. They could have killed multiple people with the bombs that they had, even if they never had the guns. So how do you get around that argument?
Well, I think there's a multi-pronged argument that needs to be made. I mean, the gun control issue is certainly one part of it. And definitely having loopholes where people who are on a terrorist watch list can get guns is not acceptable.
They weren't.
Paul Ryan has his bill.
They weren't on a list.
And exactly. So it's not going to affect a situation like this where they've got, they had an arsenal of bullets and high weapons that they were able to use.
Yeah.
And if we're not able to somehow monitor that and also at the same time go back, which we just had come up again, the 9/11 Commission report, and look at the ways which not only local law enforcement, but the FBI, the CIA, the State Department, and Treasury are able to work together to make sure that we're able to monitor and know what is happening, not only internationally, but within our own shores. Because clearly we have an issue here that needs to be addressed. And it can't be just, mentally ill people. These people are not mentally ill.
And it's not just about gun control, as we're finding out in this story, Guy. Listen, they could have killed a bunch of people with the bombs that they were making. And by the way, then are we going to shut down Walmart because that's where you can buy the parts?
There are a lot of logical holes in that argument, right? It's a convenient little box that you can focus on and say, oh, let's try to control guns more. But as you astutely point out, Gretchen, there's the bomb issue here. If they're not going to obey laws against making bombs, they're not going to obey laws against guns. Also, this shooting took place in California, a state controlled by liberal Democrats with some of the strictest gun laws in the country. A lot of the things that we hear about as so-called common sense reforms, already the case in the state of California, and yet this tragedy, this horrible shooting, took place anyway. And when you talk about increasing gun control laws, what you're really discussing is disarming law-abiding innocent people of their ability, A, to defend themselves, and B, exercise their constitutional
and it's
rights.
very interesting because on Black Friday, gun sales peaked. They spiked. Every 2 seconds, the FBI was doing a background check. That must tell us something about the feelings and emotions of people in this country. I want to move on to the political impact of this, because I want to play now Donald Trump from his impact of what happened yesterday. This is going to impact the election, no doubt. Listen to Donald.
We had another event which probably was, the one yesterday, probably was related. It always happens, but probably was. When I heard about it, I figured maybe not, but it turns out probably was related. Radical Islamic terrorism. And I'll tell you what, we have a president that refuses to use the term. He refuses to say it. There's something going on with him that we don't know about.
So he said that ISIS was contained, President Obama, and he claimed homegrown terror was a non-issue, Jessica.
Well, we have ongoing issues with radicalism that are happening and terrorism that are not just related to this one incident, because we just had another shooting on Friday. So it's part of what's happening here is more than just this terrorism issue where it's radical Islam. There is an issue going on where people have access to these assault rifles and weapons that are not the normal gun purchase that people are making at gun shows. Most people are not going out and buying AK-47s. So the situation is different, and I think what the president is trying to address.
That's not what happened, and I think a lot of people are still waiting for this president to admit what the real issue may be. Got to wrap it there. Guy and Jessica, thank you.